They say Nigeria is too rich to be poor and too poor to be rich. Why has the country stagnated on the path towards development? Listen to The Conduit on Vision FM 92.1 Abuja every Thursday at 9 a.m. as we explore issues around illicit financial flows in Nigeria, government's regulatory and policy frameworks, and offer practical recommendations to addressing the economic problem. The Conduit is powered by the Center for Democracy and Development, CDD, with support from Trust Africa.
Very beautiful morning to you. It's 92.1 Vision FM, and it's so good to have you on the Conduit this morning. And the program series will focus on illicit financial flows, which seem to have become a challenge to West Africa and Nigeria in particular. Our resource person is already seated in the studio, and she is Hassan Idayat. She is the Director, Center for Democracy and Development. Welcome to the program, ma'am.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay, illicit financial flows is globally defined as the unrecorded and mostly untaxed illicit leakage of capital and resources out of the country. In conceptualizing IFFs, illicit can be equated, with illegal, so that IFFs are the illegal movement of cash and assets from one country to another. And the World Bank used similar descriptions of IFFs in their publications. Broadly, GFI defines IFFs as funds crossing borders that are illegally earned, transferred, and or utilized. Africa is still the continent hosting largest share of people living in extreme poverty. In countries with poor foundations for human development, African countries as well as Nigeria are suffering huge capital losses due to IFFs. This essentially refers to the maxed movement of money and other forms of wealth from one national jurisdiction to another, with the intention to deceive the relevant national authorities and avoid paying compulsory dues. And often this involves undeclared bulk movement of cash, clandestine transfer, smuggling, and trade misinvoicing of goods and services. This program will be addressing issues around conduits of IFFs. And our focus for today is multi-level governance, corruption, and decentralization in Nigeria. And subsequently, we'll have a whole lot of things to focus as regards IFFs, that's illicit financial flows. And I told you our resource person is already seated in the studio, and we'll just move on to the discussion today. My name is Omleha Ode. Okay, Ma, we actually came across a report as regards democracy and corruption and decentralization. What's the linkage between both of them?
Well, thank you very much, actually. I think it's very good to put it in context that, of course, decentralization is basically breaking down the system of government, and the essence is to actually make governance closer to the people. Then, of course, we know what corruption is. But there has been there has been assertion in the policy level that when you decentralize, you help to reduce corruption. And so this work was basically to look at that, to test that assertion, if it is true or not, particularly within the Nigerian context. And it's very, very instructive to find out that for us, decentralization has not aided in terms of reducing corruption, but it has actually helped to facilitate corruption. So some people will even call it decentralization of corruption at the end of the day.
Okay, in what way will you say decentralization is actually effective in Nigeria?
It's not effective because we have to go to the local government system itself. Because of the imperfect way the local government administration in Nigeria has been, it's not been able to do otherwise. One, it's not been able to deliver development to the people because local government is that tier of government that is largely unformed and has been in comatose. In fact, since 1999. From 1999 till date, 19 years, it seems to be getting worse. And this imperfection, which is largely as a result of the political economy of resources brought about by the state government, has not allowed the local government to develop or to deliver development to the people.
Meaning you're putting the blame back to the federal system of government and
exactly.
All of that. Okay.
But now the blame is not largely on the federal government, but the blame is largely on the state government and the law also that creates local government in Nigeria. The first is that, of course, one of the biggest issues we tend to talk about is the state joint allocation, the JAC, by virtue of the section 162 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, that allows states, all the monies that goes to local government do not go directly. It first of all goes to the state, but they know the percentage, then it goes through them. So because of this issue, it does not allow the government, the state government, to allow the local government administration to work in the way it should work. In fact, one of our findings is that even some local government, they know what their budget should be, but in the real sense, using the envelope system, they don't get that actual
required allocation.
So they come and they can give you 2 million and say, so it is envelope, use it to do what you like. So because you have enveloped it, it also makes, and it is not tied to any specific activities, it allows corruption to actually fester. So if you like, you can say you have used all this money to build houses. Nobody checks about it. Checks. So from the top to the bottom, corruption has festered in the system, and it is largely as a function of lack of accountability.
Okay, based on lack of accountability, that is what the report revealed, or that is just what is there?
So no, that's just one
of the aspects of the report.
One of the aspects of the report.
Okay, what does multi-level governance imply? So
multi-level governance means these different tiers of government. So you have the federal, you have the state, then you have the local government administration, like a 3-tiered government at different levels, because we are on a radio program, so we can carry our listeners along. So government at different level, but the emphasis here is now looking at the local government administration in Nigeria. The 1976 local government reform actually seems to be the best reform so far in terms of the local government administration.
It's the best, but how effective is it?
But it's so the ineffectiveness comes from a number of issues. One is the tenure system itself. While we know it is 4 years for presidency or all the other executive offices, there is nothing that states explicitly how many years it is actually for local government. So if some put 3 years, some put 2 years, the lack of elections or even credible elections into the local government itself remains a challenge. So by the time we were writing this report, we classified the groups of states. We classified the states into 3. One was the states that have had local government elections, states that have indicated they will not have local government elections, and states that they will not have.
With the ones that will not have, did they give reasons for it?
They have no resources is one of the reasons. Then the third was the one that hope to have, but of course because there is no time frame attached to this. Then again, the law itself. So when you look at it, creation of local government is one example, but creation does not help in terms of making them accountable or making them useful. This time around, creation is even one way that they have been able to circumvent their accountability. So when you see people create LCDAs out of local government development, LCDA area or something from some states, So either than having 20 local governments, they had become to have 55, which means you also have to share the resources again. And that resources, there is no explicit way you have to share it. Then also the fact that some of the states have taken over the responsibilities of the local government. So for instance, some of the primary education is one. Of course, the teachers themselves do not trust the local government, so they prefer to be paid from
the state directly.
Sanitation, signage, several of these responsibilities have actually been taken over by the state, depending on, in fact, most of the states now, really, so they have taken it over. Then the law will then say that they cannot make law for themselves, it's the state houses of assembly. And these state houses of assembly are actually attached to the apron strings of the state governance. Then you have how to share the resources really itself. So if you had looked at it, that since we started this whole idea of constitutional amendments in Nigeria, there has been an attempt to make local government effective, to make local government to work perfectly. But this is one legislation that has refused to sail through in all the amendments. So when you look at the last amendment, not even this one, that's
the 1976.
No, not the 1970. The last constitution amendment.
Okay.
Before period to the 2010 constitution amendment, the last amendment period to the 2015 elections, and even this amendment also. For instance, you have laudable provisions that will say that if you do not conduct elections, you are not allowed to access resources from the states. You are not allowed to access that resources for local government. That will be one. That elections must actually be conducted. That, for instance, the state independent electoral body who conduct these elections, which are largely not credible, the responsibilities should be taken away from them and given to INEC. You find out that all these laudable provisions of the law have never sailed through. It passes from Abuja here, but once it gets to the state, it is voted down. Because it means that once you take away this local government money, what happens is that you have taken away the power of the state government. You have taken away one very regular access to resources. But now it does not also suffice to say that the blame is just on the state. At the local government level itself, there is so much corruption ongoing, even within that stream of resources they have. Now, it's also important to point out that while we have several anti-corruption mechanisms that is actually working, so you have the EFCC, you have the ICPC, you have all these CCB, you have all these fine bodies agencies working here at the national and at the state level. They are almost non-existent when it comes to local government administration. And because we the people ourselves have also given up on the local government system, we do not care to shine light on what is happening at that level.
Okay, thank you very much for that insight. You said something about the attempts being made for local governments to work. What attempts are being made, and how can they actually be materialized? Like, how can they truly work?
So if you look at I remember, in fact, in the 2015 amendments, ahead of the 2015 elections, I think we started this amendment in 2013, and we had made presentation on how to strengthen the State Independent Electoral Commission, for instance, so that they can conduct credible elections at that level as one thing to do. And all the amendments have recommended that the state independent, maybe what they say mostly is that take away local government elections from State Independent Electoral Commission and give it to INEC, which many believe will burden INEC with much more responsibilities than it already has. That is one. Two, for instance, will be that local government must hold elections. It's not holding elections at the whims and caprices of the chief executive officer of that state. Because when you look at elections, in fact, you see that this year many of the states are holding local government elections.
Yes.
And it's because it's an election year. So that is why all of a sudden you even find some states who have never held local government elections, all of a sudden holding local government elections. There are even states in this country that is like they've never held before. They have not had local government election in the last 10 years, really. So, for instance, when you make the fact that holding elections is into the local government council will determine the access to resources by this state for local government, that is self-effacing and a very positive. So there are several of such which has actually been proposed by the National Assembly, but once it gets to the state houses of assembly, it is voted against. So it's just like devolution in the last amendment that people are saying with devolution. Restructuring Nigeria also has to do with having the local government system work effectively.
Generally, what's your opinion on this restructuring of Nigeria?
I think it's a thing that has to happen, really, because when you look at where we are at this point in time, we should have been far ahead. 19 years of an untested, unstretched democracy. We've not gone this far in the history of Nigeria. But 19 years, we have more issues. We have become more bifurcated along religious or ethnic line. There are issues of delivery. So we are delivery of that dividend of democracy to people. So restructuring is a must. But the core question we should ask is, what exactly will we be restructuring if we want to restructure Nigeria? What is the time frame for this restructuring itself, and how do we go about it? Do you want to restructure by having another constitutional conference, for instance? And if you even want to have a constitutional conference, what should be the composition of this constitutional conference? Should it be one that it will only be for the elite? Will it be one that will be representative and ask people from all strata of society at all levels what exactly they want?
Okay, then for monitoring and evaluation, to what extent will you say it's effective on the local government?
It's not really, because what we found from the report is that there is a conspiracy at all levels. So you find, I think there is one local government council we went to and we were told that nobody sees even the audited report, not now the budget. It's just between the chairman and the auditor. That's how you see that. And at all levels, there is corruption. So at times, when you want to go to the State House of Assembly, for instance, is supposed to oversight this local government. Once there is time for them to present budget, to do oversight, to do all this, then they go again and give money to these people in these several committees. So there is actually a very opaque system. There is the fact that there is lack of accountability. There is we also as citizens are not demanding accountability at this level. I think that is very, very important to point out, because monitoring and evaluation, the way we are monitoring budget at the national level, for instance, the way we are monitoring state budgets, the way we are creating meters, nobody is actually talking about that at the local government level.
All right, thank you very much, Idayat Hassan. She's the Director, Center for Democracy and Development. And this is the program, The Conduit, sponsored by Center for Democracy and Development with support from Trust Africa. It's still 92.1 Vision FM, your number one community-friendly radio station. We'll take a break and we'll be right back. And once we come back, the phone lines will be open for you to make your contributions and ask questions. Stay with us.
They say Nigeria is too rich to be poor and too poor to be rich. Why has the country stagnated on the path towards development? Listen to The Conduit on Vision FM 92.1 Abuja every Thursday at 9 a.m. as we explore issues around illicit financial flows in Nigeria, government's regulatory and policy frameworks, and offer practical recommendations to addressing the economic problem. The Conduit is powered by the Center for Democracy and Development, CDD, with support from Trust Africa.
And welcome back to the program, The Conduit, right here 92.1 Vision FM. And our resource person is the Director, Center for Democracy and Development. She is Hassan Idayat. And we have been focusing today on multi-level governance, corruption and decentralization in Nigeria. And not to forget, the program The Conduit focuses on illicit financial flows. And it is a global problem, but Nigeria is definitely our focus. And the phone lines are open for you to call in and make your contribution. The phone lines are open for you to call in and make your contributions. The numbers are 080-91127-352 or 08025140627. You could also send a message to 33538. 33538. Multi-level governance, corruption and decentralization in Nigeria. Okay, permit me to ask again, our resource person, how does corruption manifest and thrive in the local government?
I think one of the ways they do it is the overestimation of the cost of projects. There is also this ghost worker syndrome, where salaries are paid or collected from fictitious workers. Award of contracts and subsequent abandonment of the same sets of contracts. They also do kickbacks and payments upfront. They lodge government funds into private accounts. Then they get back the interest from these funds, from these private accounts. You also have misappropriation and embezzlement of funds. And at times, these people, they when they also steal money, they also use proxy to buy property as well. Some even sell property of the state to themselves. So it's manifesting very, very in different ways, actually, and it has a lot of effect in terms of the delivery of public goods and services. In Nigeria, there has been so much emphasis on Abuja in terms of delivery of development, but some of these responsibilities actually lie at the local government level or the state level, really, and it depends on how we are able to tackle it. That is how people will start feeling the dividends of democracy.
Actually, like that aspect of getting to feel the dividend of democracy. There are measures actually initiated by the anti-graft at national levels. How effective will you say this is to the subnational and mainly on the local government?
It's completely absent at that level, really. It's completely, except when there are political cases. So if you check it, you do not find the issue of EFCC, for instance, as a big issue dealing with local government officials. Yes, it happens, but there is no emphasis on it. It's the same for ICPC does a bit, but the truth of the matter is that emphasis, those anti-corruption mechanisms, are almost absent at the local government level, either by civil society or the government. But also to say that there are very few ones which has worked so far. So for instance, in schools, some parents have created the school management system, where they come together, and by coming together they contribute resources, but they do not just contribute these resources, they monitor what happens to that resources. The schools based management committee, SBMC, which actually started as a DFID project, it has ended, but it is still continuing in many states. And Ekiti is even one state where you find that kind of system. I'm now not saying it at the local government level. So this system has proven to be very, very effective and efficient in terms of following the money in some local government, but it takes the intervention of actors. But when you look, for instance, in places of health, the primary health care centers are supposed to be at the local government level, but most of it are decrepit. They are supposed to be the first point of call. You are not supposed to, for instance, run to those big teaching hospitals or even local government hospitals at times, except you have very big issues and you should have been referred. But this primary health care has been abandoned in most states.
Okay, okay. Based on this report, there are over 776 local government. With will you say majority? Okay. Will you say 774? I beg your pardon. Will you say majority are, will I say, crippled with all of this, or it's, I don't know how to best put this question, but would you say majority are actually crippled by the effect of corruption?
Yes, because one is because of the lack of political and financial autonomy. So when these people, they have no political autonomy, most of the people that are actually appointed as appointees, not even local government, not duly elected persons. So they are just mainly appointees. They call them caretaker committee or something. There is no security of tenure. There is no financial autonomy to say that 30,000 naira belongs to me, and this is how I agree to spend this 30,000 naira with members of my local government. Really.
Okay, so I think we'll still come back to this crippling effect. Let's take a call right there. Hello, good morning.
Oh, good morning.
Glad to have you. What's your name and where are you calling us from?
My name is Bala. I'm going to Abuja. So we are talking about the corruption. We don't talk corruption.
Hello, Bala.
Corruption. So we need change 2019. Very good, so good. Thank you for guessing.
All right, Bala, thank you very much for calling in. I just hope change comes in 2019. As you have said, the focus is still multi-level governance, corruption and decentralization. Multi-level governance that's cutting across the three tiers of government, corruption and decentralization in Nigeria. I think she'll focus on it. She'll definitely let us fill us in on the report, the findings, and so far, how far with the findings from the report. We'll definitely get a feed on that. You could still call in and make contributions and ask your questions. 080-911-27352 or 08025140627, or you could send an SMS to 33538. Multi-level governance, corruption and decentralization in Nigeria. That is the focus for today. Okay, you actually heard his concern talking about corruption, and his complaint is those that seem to divert funds in billions and not brought to book. Rather, those with little funds and all of that happen to face the law.
Yeah, I think everybody is worried about that, but it has to do largely with the slow wheel of justice. People have a way of circumventing justice in Nigeria. So you see people, when you look at the cases, they bring like 10 san, they take, in fact, I think we have a case, for example, the case of the former governor of Taraba State, Jolly Yami, that was sentenced to 14 years imprisonment yesterday. This is a case that has spanned 11 years before it was finally determined. So this slow wheel of justice actually does not give people confidence in the administration of criminal justice system. And at times we should not overemphasize it as a fault of the judiciary. These people that are hearing these cases also are hearing different cases. They are the same people possibly who will be hearing the cases of some other economic matters, some criminal issues, depending on what their jurisdictions are. So they are already overburdened. Then the prosecution is also a challenge, really. So these people that are prosecuting the cases, either they are from EFCC, they are from ICPC, how well hardened are they in terms of prosecuting this case? And are there diligently prosecutions of most of those cases? Because also at times people do not, while we blame defense lawyers, also the people who are prosecuting do not diligently prosecute the case. Then talking in terms of corruption also, the social dimension is actually a very big issue. In our communities, how do we celebrate corruption or do otherwise? Because we focus on the government, but we have evidence to show that the communities at times even encourage people to be corrupt by their demands on some of these public office holders.
Okay, why the focus on the local government, the report?
Yeah, because it's actually meant to test the assertion actually if decentralization hates corruption to gather evidence or stops corruption from what is actually in the literature. But for us, we decided to focus on the local government system because if the local government works, what it means is that people will feel the dividend of democracy more and more. So if you look at the constitution, there are 3 lists. You have the executive list, you have the concurrent list, you have the residual list. And when you go to look at this, the responsibilities on this list, some are overlapping. Then the big issues, you see those refuse on your street, the refuse that will cause cholera, give whatever, they are the responsibilities of the local government. So when you have an ineffective local government system, you have a local government system that is not actually performing. What Abuja does, what the capital city, if you say Damaturu, if it is Yobe, Lagos, Ikeja, where the government is actually based, does, might not actually reach people who are in those far places, especially the poor in the society.
Then what do you think of, you said something about allocation being given to the state and not getting to the local government. Yes. What if, because the local government actually make up the state, that they're like sections in the state. What if there is just, will I say, a centralized system at that level?
Yeah, but no. I think this is something that has been going on for long. Is this state joint local government account? They call it the JAC.
The JAC, yes.
Yeah. So this has been going on for long. This is not even it's not a new issue. In fact, I remember when the former minister was there, she used to publish the allocation on monthly basis. Then you can also check how much the local governments are supposed to get. But there are evidences to show that some local governments will even get just 200,000, because what happens is that the state will pay the salaries of the people, pay everybody, then give you something and say it is running cost. And the implication in several states of the federation is that people will disappear from the local government until it's that day they are coming to collect salaries. So when they open some local governments, it's just see them, they just open it. The day they come to collect salaries, they close it again, they go back home. Some of these local governments are not working. Then when people are entitled, again, it's accountability. Then how can accountability work when the whole system is already imperfectly skewed from the beginning? You cannot expect any form of accountability in such places, really. Then it's also, like I said earlier, the envelope system. So they just give you 2 million out of you are entitled to 42 million. And that 2 million is not tied to anything to say that, okay, Vision FM, you have to build a new studio. So you have the opportunity to also do what you like with this 2 million naira.
What reforms would you say can be done at the local government levels?
I think the first reform is not going to be is from the constitution. Eliminate the state local government, joint local government accounts. Once you eliminate it, everybody gets their money directly. So it does not go to so if you are entitled, if A is entitled to 40 million, A gets his 40 million. So once you eliminate that and you make sure that elections are conducted into the local government local government councils, and they are not just conducted at the whim and caprices of the state governors, but their tenure are also secured, written into the constitution to say that it is a 3-year tenure, it is a 4-year tenure, and these elections must be conducted for you to have access to resources. So that's one. Then the kind of monitoring and accountability that we as citizens must do at that level is very, very big. We cannot afford to sit back and continue to lay emphasis on other tiers of government without shining our lights into it, because we want to make the local government to work for the poor.
Okay, I think you've even gotten to respond to the ways, if these are right ways to go, because National Assembly actually recently passed the bill to remove the joint state allocation account, and you actually say it's the right way to go. So in a wrap up right now, multi-level governance, corruption and decentralization, how effective will it be in Nigeria?
If you have a perfect system, if you do not have an imperfectly skewed local government system, I guess there might still be corruption, because you cannot totally eliminate corruption. It will be reduced, and most importantly, people will begin to feel the dividend of democracy.
Thank you very much, Idayat Hassan, Director, Center for Democracy and Development, for coming on the Conduit today.
No, thank you very much for having me.
Okay, the program is going to be a series that will focus on illicit financial flows, which seem to have become a challenge to West Africa and Nigeria in particular. The Conduit returns your way next week, Thursday, 9 a.m. in the morning. From Vision 92.1 FM, my name is Omleha Ode. Do have a beautiful day.
They say Nigeria is too rich to be poor and too poor to be rich. Why has the country stagnated on the path towards development? Listen to The Conduit on Vision FM 92.1 Abuja every Thursday at 9 a.m. as we explore issues around illicit financial flows in Nigeria, government's regulatory and policy frameworks, and offer practical recommendations to addressing the economic problem. The Conduit is powered by the Center for Democracy and Development, CDD, with support from Trust Africa.